I'm chatting. Yeah. Maybe next to it. That's why it's true. I miss you. Yes, I do. Yeah. All right.
Meg.
Nancy Bootless. All right, well, it's 1:01. So it's time for me to call this meeting to order, and as always, we will start with pledge of allegiance. Ready? Yeah.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yes.
Yes. Old man syndrome. Okay, there we go. Forgot to turn it on. So we will have roll call. And do you do this?
I'd be happy to. Member Nelson,
Here.
Member McKesson,
Here.
Member Marnett,
Here.
Member Irvine, and we
Okay,
will note Julie Johnson and Meg Gaska absent. Thank you.
right. So we have 6 members of the committee. We have 5 members present. That means we do have a quorum. And if we had an alternate, we would not need to seat an alternate today. So we're good to go. Good to go. All right. Additions, deletions, amendments to the agenda. As always, I like to ask if the staff has anything they would like to change.
None from staff.
None from staff. How about members of the committee? Negative. Bob?
No, nothing.
Me neither. Okay, so looking for a motion to approve the agenda. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll say.
Okay, moved by Director Irvine, seconded by Vice Chair McKesson. And we can do this by acclamation, is that right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Agenda's approved. Public comment. Do we have any? Well, we do have members of the public. So do we have any people on Zoom? Huh?
Only staff.
Staff. And do we have any slips?
I have no
Speaker
request.
slips?
No,
Okay. Does that mean I need to read this or not? I don't think I do.
no,
Okay.
it's not necessary.
Okay, not necessary. Okay. Item number 8, approval of minutes. We all received the minutes that Therese and her team thoughtfully prepared for us. And I am looking to either hear suggested changes to the minutes or a motion to approve the minutes. Now, Mig's little rant. Mig's rant was on a calendar item, right? It was not on the minutes. Okay. So is there a motion to make a change to the minutes or a motion to approve the minutes? I'll move to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. I moved and Steve seconded a motion to approve the minutes. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Okay. Comments and requests. General Manager Jake, that's you today.
Yeah, I won't take too much time. We've got enough to cover today, but a couple of things I actually just saw in the minutes that I'd given kind of a report on water supply last E&O meeting, and we were at a 15% allocation for on the state water project side, and that's actually moved up since then to 35%. So it's 35% allocation on the state water project, which in essence means Met has enough supply to meet all their demands. So likely no draw from storage this year, which just means we stay out of drought for that much longer. The water supply picture, at least the import water supply picture, looks good. It's been very dry here. We haven't received a ton of precipitation, maybe a little bit in the forecast. There is more snow in the forecast for the Sierras. I know on the Colorado side, they're getting snow right now too. So anyways, as far as the import goes, pretty good water year. I think our local folks who would like to see a little more, more rainfall, and we like to see them get relief, but maybe that'll come, maybe it won't. But as far as our supply goes, we likely aren't going to be having to deal with drought restrictions or anything for any time in the near future. So that's
good.
It's a really good news. Lots of talk going on, obviously, with everything that's going on at the federal government. Couple of how the only real concerns here are we have a couple of grants that are through the feds. We have a $1.6 million grant that's through the EPA on the wastewater side. We have a cybersecurity grant that came through the feds. That was actually I think that was just December when we got that announced that we were recipients of that. And so we're just watching those things closely as far as, some of these funding freezes and things like that are, and large budget cuts that are being kind of thrown around. We're watching those things. The good news is our application on the 1.6 million grant, which is probably the most impactful for us. It's actually under review by the EPA right now. They're taking a look at some of our upfront environmental and taking a look at our application. So we're being a little cautious on expending any funds on design of that project. It's a project on your list here. It was on last year's CIP as well. But being a little cautious on expenditures there, just until we kind of get a little more certainty on both that the EPA gives us the thumbs up and the funding is, I guess, secure. So we're watching that a little bit closely.
Jake?
Yeah.
I don't want to devolve into politics here, but just do we have any reason to be cautiously optimistic that the project you mentioned and perhaps others that need environmental approvals might be sitting in a little bit better light as a result of the general objective of deregulation or reduced regulation of projects?
Potentially, it's something to watch. Where this has gone in the past, though, is typically when things, there'll be things that happen at the federal government level,
And then California,
but then California will step up and
Okay.
kind of keep their regulations where they're at.
right?
That's been the back and forth history. Now, I don't know if you're withholding wildfire funding for concessions. Who knows?
Right.
That's, but we'll see. The projects that we're looking at aren't tremendously impactful environmentally, and so we're actually just waiting on a thumbs up on an exemption. So that's
And these were all covered by the PEIR, right?
these ones. Not necessarily. These are direct replacements. So they were generator replacements on the wastewater side. So backup power. And so they're basically just take one out, put a in kind in. Again, shouldn't be a huge issue, but we want to get the thumbs up. Some of the other projects, who knows, right? I mean, when you're talking about groundwater projects and things like that would have a lot more impact. Now those are things you probably want to keep a close eye on to see if there is any, something that would make a change. But typically California stays pretty strict on the environmental regulations, and that's the bar we have.
That's
to hit.
where we have to live.
That's the
Right.
bar we have
Yep,
to hit.
Yep. I got you. Okay. Thank you.
The one thing we are keeping close tabs on too is the zero emission vehicle mandate, which the Advanced Clean Fleets Rule is what it was called. CARB got it through last year. It impacts, you probably all know this, but it impacts utilities in that right now, any heavy duty vehicle we buy, so anything over 8,500 pounds, gross weight, requires a matching zero emission vehicle be purchased as well. So it's a 1-to-1. Buy one, you want to buy a 3/4 ton pickup, you got to buy an EV to offset it.
Even if only one vehicle is needed and budgeted?
That's
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, if only one, you can buy one. If it's available in an EV, you can buy it as an EV, and that would count. But they're not available. So we have this 1-to-1 thing going.
This is cuckoo.
You said it.
Yeah, I did.
The federal government's weighed in a little bit on this, but trying to mount a little bit of pressure on loosening those requirements. In addition, I actually just found out CSDA is co-sponsoring legislation for a pretty significant reform to that act. Most importantly, and this is something that the utilities were lobbying for as this whole thing was coming through, but we weren't able to kind of get it across the finish line, was for utilities to have an emergency vehicle designation. So similar to how police and fire are basically exempt because they're emergency response. Utilities argued, we're emergency response, right? We're responding to water main breaks that have to get fixed, and they have to be out there the entire time until the water main break is fixed. And so they're really pushing hard on that, as well as a few concessions on some of the exemptions and things like that. So again, something we're watching very closely. This is really the first year this would impact us. We do have, and Robert can kind of detail this through you, but we do have the need for a 3/4 ton truck. And so we've been trying to figure out how exactly to navigate these regulations and in potentially securing that. So more to come.
In an environment where we have to, as you say, navigate these regulations. Is there any prospect, and would it be desirable to us to commit to, if we need to get a 3/4 ton truck and it is not an electric available, can we commit that the next vehicle that we get be an electric vehicle? And
Yeah,
the problem, of
yeah.
course, is that if the next vehicle we want is another 3/4 ton truck and there is not one available in the market as an electric vehicle, then we really find ourselves in a conflict of laws.
Right.
That's
And
where we are.
so that's kind of the what we're going through right now. It may not be the worst thing in the world to have a EV pickup if it's useful to us. It's a vehicle that we were going to replace anyways, those kind of things. So we're looking at all the options on how we're going to.
And this
comply.
whole 1-for-1 or whatever it is, would I be correct in assuming, and I'm jumping ahead here, why I see some funding for EV charging stations here at headquarters? And I guess we can talk about whether those were intended mainly for the public and would be in a public place, or whether they would be intended for operations and would be in a secured location. We'll have that conversation. Is that why that's there, because of this problem?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
And it's the latter, just to
Okay,
give you the answer before
thank
the
you.
test.
Okay,
That's all I've got. We can cover the rest later.
okay. Thank you. Any questions for Jake? All right. 9B, Engineering and CIP Program Manager comments. Chad, that's you, I think.
Yeah, I'll do the same. Keep it short. We're going to dive into the draft 5-year CIP. Staff is working on, as we completed the mid-year cycle, and that budget's done, just finishing up those current year projects that we're working on, and then already focusing on what we call year one, which is FY 25-26. The 5-year, and ours goes 20 years out, but we plan actively for the first 10. In today's agenda packet, there are a couple of errors. Mig pointed out one of them in the board informational report. We'll fix that. And then on the notice of completion memo, there are 2 maps of the same location. We're missing the Dentro location. So that's why these meetings are good to have. We'll get it corrected before we go to the board meeting.
Anything else? That it? Any questions for Chad? All right. Item 9C. Operations Manager comments. Robert?
How much time do I have?
Uh, hopefully you can finish before sundown. How's that?
I can do that.
Okay.
I'm a team player. Operation, so Hutton Tanks was taken out of service several weeks ago for internal repairs, coating and working on the rafters and whatnot. That was one of the tanks that when we met with USG, the contractor, and we had those negotiations with them, that we as staff identified as like a critical need, like start off with this one. We're planning on taking Rainbow Heights out of service next week. That was another tank that we identified and told them this is what.
These were tanks where we saw the dirty stuff up near the
Yeah.
top, right?
Yes.
On the X-ray, so to speak.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
So those are gonna be both in progress here. We also work out the schedule with them to be completed essentially by the end of June before things start to warm up. So it looks like we're on track for that to happen. Both those tanks. We did have a main break on Sunday on Sugar Pine where the water came down on the Secret Lake. It's off of Gerd, kind of by Montserrat Winery. Just the 6-inch water line, but we're gonna have to go back. And recorrect some stuff that, some old stuff that we found that's not up to our current standards that we need to make right, so. That'll come up on the schedule. And just to follow up on what Jake was saying on this SB 496 for these EV vehicles. Yeah, if this goes through, it'll be major for us as a district because we're trying to, every year we evaluate what vehicles we need to replace and it's based on hours on the engine, miles on the engine, how much of repairs have we done to the vehicle? How much lifespan does that vehicle have? So we come up with this list. So let's say we have 5 vehicles that we need to purchase. Essentially, we need to buy an additional 3 EVs with that 5 vehicle purchase. Right? So it's really getting tricky to navigate this and we're just trying to figure it out right now. So I've got a spreadsheet that I updated. I'll be sending to Jake and Constantine about what we kind of came up myself and Fleet. But it's complicated. It's really complicated.
Do any of these newfangled electric vehicles such as the refrigerator or the Rivian trucks, so forth, they all offer some, at least in the sales pitch, things like huge amounts of power and torque. They do crab walks. And I'm just curious if any of those are potential benefits to us that we cannot get through the standard ICE vehicles. I'm just wondering.
No.
No, okay,
No.
okay.
They don't even have trailer hitches.
What?
They don't even have trailer hitches.
Yeah. And the vehicles that we get are not, so let's say you buy a Chevy truck and you can get the Lariat, the Silverado, you can get these different packages. The package we get is the lowest end package. It's called a work truck model, right? So it doesn't have carpet inside. It's pretty basic. And then we have certain specifications on there. So some, depending on the use of the truck, like our locator truck, we want it to be 4-wheel drive. Still have a lot of dirt roads in our area. The electric trucks, like Jake mentioned, we see that the need for some of those, but doing our entire fleet, it's,
Right.
you know, you have a 10-yard dump truck. How are you gonna, they don't even make those electric.
Right.
Right, and the state.
I was thinking more along the pickups and the utility vehicles and stuff.
And not all of them, because then we get into issues, and this is a future longer discussion, but a good example is an after hours duty guy takes that truck home, it's electric. What happens if he's been rolling around all night? Now he's got to charge it, but he's at home.
He's at home. Exactly.
Are we gonna pay him to go to a charging station and sit there for 20 minutes? Like it just, there's so many
I
complications.
was not speaking and asking the question in support of the EVs, but rather to find out if some of these features that are being broadcasted about these EVs, such as the tremendous amount of power and I mean pushing power,
Yeah.
pulling power, and the crab walking for off-road and stuff, if whether any of that is real to us or if it is not real to us.
Nothing in the EVs has been designed for utility work.
Thank you. What I wanted to hear. Thank you very much.
Welcome. That's all I have.
Okay. I have something for you, Robert. I just want to say thank you to your department. I received 2 notices that I was going to be out of water today. And when I took a shower at 12 o'clock today, water ran fine, plenty of pressure. So whatever you guys have done, Highline, whatever it is that you did, so far, the impact of the 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. water shutdown has not happened. And I can assure you, I've had multiple phone calls from my neighbors asking, believe it or not, if something was wrong because we were supposed to have a shutdown and the water has not been shut down. So I just want to thank you.
Well,
Thank you. You and your team. And it's not the first time that we've been alerted to a possible shutdown of water, only to not have it happen, which, believe me, we are all very grateful for that.
I know up in that area, the shutdowns used to be much larger and they've done some creative things to at least keep a good portion of the population up there in pressure. So.
And it's
it's a good thing.
appreciated,
Yeah.
very much so.
got it.
Thank you. Okay, item D, committee member comments. We'll just go around the horn. Nothing.
Nothing.
I got a couple things.
Hit it.
Robert.
And by the way,
about
like
10 days
Robert,
ago-
we need for you to finish by sundown. Okay. Okay.
About 10 days ago, 4 monster fire trucks showed up at the Hutton Tank. You know anything about that?
Yeah, there was an accident with the subcontractor for USG. One of their employees got injured working inside the tank. Yeah, it was a couple Fridays ago.
Okay.
Guys doing fine.
And second, there's this monster tree outside the fence area that was trimmed about a week ago, but they left most of the large wood on the ground. They ground up the small pieces. I guess maybe their grinder couldn't handle
Only
the big
fit
pieces.
so much.
And it's all just left laying there.
Good
Yeah.
firewood.
And yeah, and the tree itself now is just a big Y and it looks awful. So if somebody can take a look to see if we maybe get a supplemental cutting and just take the whole thing down, because
I don't think
it's really
that-
sad
That
looking.
wasn't us that ordered that. I know for a fact.
Is it off?
We haven't.
Is it
even
off
sent-
away from the Hutton tank?
It's right outside the fence.
Yeah.
But
No, must
I
be
think
somebody
it
else.
might have had something to do with the cell tower people, but we'll look into it.
Okay.
Yeah, it was 2 guys, looked like a father and his son, and the side of the truck had Bakersfield written on it.
Hmm.
We're like, that doesn't sound like the contract
No.
that we talked about last month.
No. No, that's SMS. Yeah. Okay,
Okay.
we'll look into it. Appreciate the
That was
info.
my 2 cents.
Anything else?
That's
You
it.
good? Okay, we'll go to item number 10. Board action updates for those who are here that are not familiar with that. When this committee makes a recommendation to the board, we like to have a follow-up to find out if that recommendation was approved, not approved, whatever. So, and Chad, you're the one that usually does that for us. So why don't you just take us through?
Yep, so there was a district-wide weed abatement agreement with SMS that was approved by the board. We have a kickoff meeting scheduled with that firm next week. A professional services agreement with the Peralt Corporation for use of the district spoils in the lower yard was presented and approved by the board. So Robert, are they mobilizing soon?
They already started moving equipment in.
Is that their front loader down there?
Mhm.
Okay.
Good.
And then the Dexter Wilson design for the Gopher Pump Station project was approved by this committee. It did not pass at the board meeting, however, so staff is coming back to the March board meeting with additional information per the board's request.
Okay.
I'll say one more thing on that too, or not on that, but just so you guys, because I think there could be items that come back to this committee. The board also approved, we entered into a mutual services agreement with, between 4 water districts, us, Fallbrook, Valley Center, and Uwima. And really it sets the stage for the potential for shared services, equipment, a host of things. There was like 5 or 6 that were actually identified within that agreement. Things we're going to look at as things that we can potentially do together better than we do alone, or for a better cost, basically. And so like I said, there could be things once we kind of hone in on, hey, we want to work on let's say mutual aid for equipment. right? And so we're going to exchange equipment list and come up with kind of dollar values on what that might look like as far as if I lend you a dump truck, what is the reimbursement for that and things like that. So as those kind of more specific agreements get formalized, if they do between the agencies, those kind of things could come back to this committee too. But the board was open to the idea of entering into those kind of agreements to the benefit of the customers.
So this would go beyond emergency situations.
It definitely could, yes, definitely could.
Makes a lot of sense.
Mhm. I think so too. I agree. Okay, anything else there? Let's move on to item number 11. Consider the appointment of a staff alternate committee member. As the calendar item says, Constantine has been proposed, and that is according to, this is what we have traditionally done in the past to promote coordination, communication, collaboration, that the CIP manager was typically the alternate, the staff alternate for the finance committee, because there is a huge linkage between a capital improvement program and paying for it. And it's useful to have that link. And similarly, historically, we have asked the finance manager to be the staff alternate for this committee for exactly the same types of reasoning. We think it's helpful for coordination, collaboration. And that's why the staff has recommended Constantine for this. I will say that I personally wholeheartedly support it, but other comments?
I agree completely as well.
Is there a motion? I'll move that we recommend to the board that Constantine be made the alternate.
I'll second.
Seconded. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right. Step one. The end of the month, you can be made official on the 24th of March or whatever that is. Okay. Okay, item 12, notice of completion and acceptance of the West Lilac, Rancho Amigos, and Dentro de Lomas Pump Stations Project Division 1. Is that you, Chad?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So this will most likely, if we have enough consent items on the board agenda, be moved from action to consent. This is the notice of completion for the 3 pump stations projects as listed: Rancho Amigos, West Lilac, and Dentro de Lomas. This goes back to when the board first awarded it in December of 2023. All 3 pump stations are online. They are operational. Punch list is complete. We are done, which is a great feeling. So we plan on bringing this notice of completion before the board. If the board takes action and approves that, it'll be recorded with the county recorder's office. The warranty period begins and all of the good stuff.
And then we post the assets to the balance sheet.
Correct. And that's in the memo. The overall valuation gets added. That's part of the memo
You're going to put dots on the map?
for the locations.
Yeah.
There are dots on the map. We tried to be not super specific with our infrastructure and their exact location. That's why it's not shown in satellite view. But there are the red pins. That is the location.
And they will get put into our GIS system, if that's what you're asking.
Well, I thought I heard you, Jake, say that just now, just a few minutes ago, that, or maybe it was you, Chad, that we needed to show the locations on, is this a different project?
same
Am
thing.
I
No.
nutty? What's going on
Your
here?
first page is the West Lilac. There's the red pin.
Okay.
The next page,
Oh,
Rancho Amigos.
okay.
The third page should be Dentro de Lomas.
Okay. All right. All right.
But again, we don't put addresses or satellite
Right. For
images.
security reasons.
Exactly.
I get it. Okay. So,
So the second Rancho Amigos will be updated with Dentro de Lomas.
okay.
But
All
the
right.
overall valuation is in there of $13.4 million.
And so we are, and so the recommendation is to recommend option 1 as amended with the dots.
Yes.
Okay. And I just have one brief question. I appreciate the financial history here. What was the initial bid award to EFI.
Oh, wow. EFI. Okay. We could find that out
Okay.
for the construction fabrication of the 3 pump stations.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Malik is listening in right now. I'm sure I'll get a Teams message here momentarily.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Meanwhile, is there any further discussion of this? Otherwise, looking for a motion to recommend option 1 to the board.
I did have a question.
Okay,
The West Lilac is the only pump station without a generator or,
No, Dentro de Lomas also does not have one.
okay.
Rancho
So
Miguel.
there's further improvements possible.
Hopefully one day. The contract with EFI was $7 million for the 3.
7 flat.
I mean, I'm sure there's some
Some
change in there, but
Okay,
yeah.
all right, all right. Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments for Chad? If not, I'm looking for a motion here.
Oh, I can agree to proceed with the conclusion of it all.
Are you moving?
Yeah.
Okay, Robert moves option 1. He recommended. Is there a second?
I will
Steve-
second this.
Steve seconds. Been moved and seconded that this item be forwarded to the board with a recommendation that they approve it per option number 1. And all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. And it passes unanimously. Very good. Okay. Next item is review the draft 5-year CIP.
Yes, so exciting stuff. This is really, yes, this is really the kickoff to our budget season. This committee gets to weigh in first on like you had mentioned, one of the biggest items within our budget. So I wanted to Chad and his group have put together a nice presentation that takes us through all the year 1 projects, which will be ultimately that's what we're asking for funding for is the year 1 projects. We give you the 5-year look. That's, that is the plan, but ultimately, by June, that's what we're ultimately after. I wanted to give you a couple of things, and these are things kind of really they were things I wanted to look at because of where, kind of where we ended last year. And really we went through a pretty robust budget discussion, multiple workshops that really brought everything together, right? We really did a revamp of our CIP, incorporated that into an overall 5-year financial plan that looked at everything from really restoring healthy reserve levels, fully funding the CIP. So coming up with a set of 5-year projects that we could actually build, that we would actually fund through that time period, and all that with reasonable rates, right? That was the really the goal, and felt like by the end of that we got to a really good dynamic plan that really met all those goals. And so this is the one piece of it, this 5-year CIP. So what I first wanted to look at was, well, how are we doing on our 5-year plan, right? We're about to finish year 1. We've executed on the majority of the CIP. And so how are we looking now? If we look at, what this year, plus the following 4, what comprise that 5-year plan. And so that's the information that's shown in this first graph. It's basically all 5 years, compares both where we kind of started last year and now where we're looking at for both looking back at this year plus the next 4. And as you can see, we're really right on target on these things. We've got an annual average spend of about 8.63. It does vary from year to year, and that wasn't unintentional. There are things we're trying to do kind of in the front end of this thing, and then other things we can do in the back end as we get some relief from some debt that's going to fall off and things like that. It gives us a little more ability. You'll see there in that year 4 to really kind of put a jolt into our capital improvement project, or into our capital improvement plan. But about 8.6 on average. And you can see, even though things have shifted, right? We've had projects move up and projects move back, and we can review all those things. But in reality, the original budget and what we're looking for right now, or we're looking at right now in our 5 year is virtually the same, about 43.5 million in through those 5 years. So really kind of still on track as far as what we had set out to accomplish here. I'll say the one thing, and this is going to differ from because this kind of came after I got kind of got Chad's table and then took a look at this thing. This actually includes us moving one of the significant pipeline replacement projects up a year. So I think it's the Sarah Ann project, which is, I think it's a $4 million construction project. Actually moving that into design in fiscal year 27-28, and then that 4 million into 28-29. And the reality is, with kind of all the changes that we made, both with kind of redoing the tank contract and all the things that we did there, it actually just ended up where year 5 had, we had planned on 8 million and we were down at 3 or 4 million. So the ability to kind of pull a big project up into the CIP and still stay on track with our financial plan. So that is one change, but I think that's a positive one. So next slide. And just wanted to give you a sense of, where are we spending our money? Like what are these projects that we're doing? And so this is now the 5 year forward, right? To 2026 to 2030. So starting this coming year, we categorized all the projects into either, rehab and replacement, that would be pipeline replacements, pump station rehabs, anything that involves that, valve replacements, all those kind of fit under that category. So rehab and replacement, operational efficiency improvement. This could be anything from pressure reducing stations, pump station, new pump station, things like that. That's what we would consider an OEI, something that improves our ability to operate, reliability, things like that. Source of supply projects, facility planning, that would be our master plan is basically in there.
Source of supply example?
Like the groundwater project.
Okay.
Groundwater project. In this case, I think the majority of that funding is still related to county water authority connections that we had some decommissioning things. So I allocated that towards source of supply.
Would that be also like then that cross feed with Fallbrook that is being?
Yes. That exactly. And so facility planning, it's important sometimes these designations too, like facility planning, you can't capitalize planning, typically can't capitalize planning projects. So that's kind of why we do those. Anything driven by development or growth, which we don't have a lot on the water side. You'll see the opposite on the wastewater side. That's a heavy driver on that side. And then regulatory driven. And that would be like our EV project. Yeah. Right? Our EV chargers, that would be regulatory driven. Not something we would probably do outside of that. Maybe we'd put in a charger and who knows, but it's obviously driven heavily by that. But as you can see, and just to give you a sense of these percentages, about 85% of our projects are rehab and replacement of existing facilities. So that's what we've prioritized in this 5 year plan. And that's what you'll see in Chad's list. So long overdue. But yeah, that's what we're after. Go ahead.
Maybe this is because I do not understand fully the nature of our contractual relationship with the water tank maintenance company. Okay. Or maybe I don't understand the scope, but I'm looking here and I'm seeing Turner Tank interior, exterior coating, 4 million gallons, transfer from operating budget, 375. And it looks to me like we're kind of paying for each of these tank overhauls by transferring money from operating to, help me just.
Yeah, not exactly. And that is a little bit of a nuance of this year's CIP. And this
basically allocating our annual payment to the contractor and
a great deal,
attributing it to stuff.
Basically a great deal of it. And really the reason behind that is those funds really should be capitalized. That is
That's
an
my
ex-
question is
yeah,
headed
that
for the balance sheet,
we
right?
talked about this, right? And so that's an extension of life on those tanks. So basically what we've done is we have a pretty good idea of that contract cost. And so we're allocating a good majority of that cost. We're going to pull it out. It shouldn't be in the operating budget, right? So we're actually
Right.
pulling a piece of that out, putting it into the capital improvement. We have a 4-year plan on which tanks are being done, including 2 this year and then 3 in the subsequent years. And that's what you see here. And so that's exactly what we've done. Basically taken a piece of that contract, allocated towards capital because it needs to be capitalized.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's good accounting. And I see that they're all 375. We got one 400 and one 350. So I'm assuming that we're kind of just making a distinction as to complexity or size of the tank
Yeah.
and why the amount of money would be different rather than just a plug number all the way
Pretty much
through.
size. It's by square footage.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Thank
Yeah.
you.
The other thing I want to mention on this, and I don't want to go too deep in because this kind of gets into, budgeting, but one of the things, and I couldn't remember exactly what brought this topic up, but in the past, as we've been putting this CIP together, we've been doing this kind of rollover of CIP funds, right? Oh, we didn't spend it this year, move that into these tables. And I think we kind of had an opportunity this year to modify that process a little bit. And I think the reason we want to do it is it's just simplify the budgeting process and the ability to keep track of things for both engineering, for finance. Also just transparency. It's hard I found it very hard to follow sometimes a project through all the iterations of the CIPs with all these rollovers and things. And so what we're trying to get to is a point where, when we approve the CIP budget, those funds are allocated into the CIP. And it's not, it's not kind of this thing where we're reallocating every single year, right? We're getting approvals for new projects or a new phase of the project, right? I don't mind splitting up design and construction or things like that because you don't want to tie up too much of your funding unnecessarily. But I think once we approve a project, those funds should be there. And I think really what it will help us do is allocate and execute year after year after year after year. That's really the intent behind this.
And in essence, you are recognizing that there is a difference between budgeting and cash flow management, right?
Correct.
And we've been trying to do too much cash flow management with our way of doing things, and it's kind of served us, but the flip side is a budget for a project is a budget for a project. How
Yeah.
you spend it is another,
Yeah.
timing of the expense is another
Right.
plan.
And it doesn't mean you can't invest it and it doesn't mean you can't do those things, same way. But I think just both, again, transparency and making sure that when we commit to something, we commit, we commit to it. Obviously there's always things that come, big emergency comes up, there's things you can't predict. But I know, he's only been here 5 days, but I've kind of preached my plan to him on kind of shifting this direction, and that's the way he's used to doing it. It's the way I'm used to doing
When the
it.
money's budgeted, basically we've put a fence around it, right? That's what we've done and said it is for this purpose.
Right.
And then it's up to the staff to spend it in an efficient and timely way.
Right. So that's really what we're after. And actually it was came out of we did the $10 million financing, and really that kind of forced that, right? We did the $10 million financing. It's restricted for year 1 and year 2 CIP in this budget. And so that's what's been happening, right? As these project costs come in, it comes directly out of those restricted funds. And so basically we want to keep that kind of, it doesn't have to be as tight as that is because that was actual financing. So you actually have to pay for those projects out of that. But I think just for good business practice, that's what we want to continue to do. And so that's what you're going to see kind of moving forward. That's what you're going to see in this year 1 CIP. We're not going, oh, we only spent 25,000 out of that budget last year, so let's move 75,000 here. And then, this is what we want funding for. And that's what we're looking for. So a little bit of a change in process there too, but I think it's for the better.
I do too.
Okay.
Robert said that the Hutton and one other tank were getting some internal recoating. Shouldn't you take credit for that in the current year
I
cost?
think on the accounting side, we will take care of that, but that's actually in this year's CIP that was already approved. But I think we will move those into our assets. That's what we're basically going to
Okay.
do, move that funding into our assets. This is just kind of formalizing that by allocating those future years into our CIP. But in essence, we'll be doing the same thing.
Okay.
Yes. So at some point, your operating expenses from this year may look quite a bit lower too, just because we move those funds. On the wastewater side, knew we had some definite restrictions here in these first few years, and that continues to be the case. But again, overall, the projects, the budgets, those kind of things haven't really moved much from last year. There is about $1 million difference here, and the primary reason for that is the $1.6 million grant. So we basically added the 1.125 million that we're anticipating getting from the EPA, because we do have to fund that project and it gets reimbursed, right? So we included that 1.075 in addition to the 525 that we allocated last year. If you go back, I'm kind of getting in the weeds here a little bit, but we had budgeted for those generator replacements with the intent of going after grant funding. We secured that 1.6 million. So basically it's allowing us to do a lot more. And so we're just allocating those funds into the CIP to cover that. So that's really the difference between what we showed you last year and kind of where we sit today. The big thing on the CIP side is really the next slide, and that is that a lot of this is development growth driven. We've got pipelines that are nearing capacity, and with a couple of major developments kind of on the horizon, in particular, help me out here, Ocean Breeze.
The San Luis Rey Thoroughbred,
Yeah, San Luis Rey. They've got a project,
Paula Ranch.
and the Paula Ranch. Yeah, those are kind of three of the bigger development projects that would eat up a lot of the
Have we
EDUs.
heard anything? I talked to you a few days ago by phone. Have we heard anything about the big land deal done over there by North River Road near Puerto del Sol? They're doing a lot of grading. They're doing staking out there. Is that grading and staking for an ag project, or is that grading and staking for
No, that's
housing, or is it a commercial?
That's housing. That's the North River Farms
Yes.
project. That's actually it does front our sewer, but it's in Oceanside's area.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes. So what's happening there is that is a big housing development, kind of long. It's long in the works, but it is happening down that North River Road corridor. Right now, we send our flow to Oceanside through a metering structure that sits at North River Road and Stallion, which is almost to Melba Bishop, if you know where Melba Bishop Park and all that is. What's happening is they're going to build this development in front of our sewer. They're going to expand, or build a new sewer, larger diameter sewer, that fronts that whole development. They're going to move our meter back, and so then that pipeline actually becomes the city of Oceanside's, and our metered connection is well back of that. It's a good thing for us.
Thank you, because all this time I was under the obviously incorrect assumption that as you drove along North River Road from Puerto del Sol all the way pretty much to Wilshire, I thought that was all rainbow territory.
We're only up to about Sleeping Indian.
And on the east side of Sleeping Indian.
The city of Oceanside goes up Sleeping Indian. It also covers a portion of Puerto del Sol, but we provide water and some sewer in that area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Currently, the trunk sewer
I'm
line,
just trying to be greedy. I was hoping we could get some development dough out of this. But I
Well,
guess
between
not.
Sleeping Indian and Puerto de Lomas, and if our sewer is the only sewer there, it depends on how that all shakes out. Where they connect.
No
who they
one's
connect
come to us yet with a discussion about potential need for service, right?
One customer has one parcel. Yeah. So, and that, that it kind of that whole discussion actually feeds, because North River Road is one of the big projects on here, expanded capacity of that. I think that is a target for grant funding, number one. Actually made an appropriations request last year. Not very much got through the senator. We made the appropriations request through, including ours. So unfortunate there, but I think we'll continue that. And then the other thing is, there is probably a lot of coordination and a long discussion with the city of Oceanside on if that sewer needs to be upsized. There's probably some kind of a synergy partnership on how that gets done. So, because part of it fronts our service area, part of it fronts theirs. It is our sewer though, but so those discussions have already kicked off. Unfortunately, their water utilities director took another position up in South Orange County, so they're recruiting for that position now. But we intend to resume those conversations. We've got a little time before this development hits and things like that, but we want to definitely get moving on that, and that's our CIP actually reflects that. So that's all I really had on the kind of the broader picture, check in where we are, what's driving our projects, and Chad's next on the individual project list, unless there's any questions for me.
Yeah, I've got a question, Chad. Could you go back one slide, please? As we look into year 4 and 5, there's a 9x to 12x increase. Explain that a little bit, and just concerned that we're.
Yeah, well, again, the majority of these projects are driven by large developments. So it is going to be both, either and developer and capital fees are going to fund a lot of these projects. So if those developments don't occur, it really, the need for those projects becomes, well, they're not needed, right? And so there will be external funding that comes in to actually put those together. That is.
Okay.
Are these new lines or are these expansion of
got
existing?
Expansion on North River, which again, I think we're actually starting, see the little tiny $50,000 there?
Yep.
That's mine for getting North River going with how do we want to replace it? Who do we want to replace it with?
How big are these barrels going to be?
Well, they're 15 now. We probably need to go to 21, 24, something that size.
Pretty good size.
I think 21 was what the last master plan showed. So where was I going with that? Well, yeah.
Developer driven.
Yes, developer driven. So, but what we have a little bit of time to obviously as those things get a little hotter, start to come online. Right now, they're all kind of held up for various reasons. Caltrans is holding one up, and they've got a huge issue there. I know Ocean Breeze is going through a kind of a total site redesign, so they're back at the county for regrading and things. I don't know where San Luis Reyes is with their thing, but they all have kind of these complex issues that, they're not going to come online next year. So we've got a little time to kind of work these things out, but we want to make sure we're planning appropriately for them and making sure we have a good plan to deal with it when the time comes. And that to be honest, that we're in a really good position to take advantage of anything that is coming our way. So that's what you see here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is then mainly driven on the wastewater side, because we didn't see that kind of a jump on the.
No, water, we don't have a whole lot. I mean, anything that is really driven by these developments on the water side, they're really internal to the development, and they're going to be fully funded by the development itself.
But our
right?
infrastructure where they would connect is sufficient.
Well, there is some offsite work that has to be done, but they would be responsible for that.
Okay.
Yeah. So you won't see that in our CIP because it's funded outside. Yeah, all the costs would be.
Jake, how did you want to go through this? Did you want to just hit each one of these, or did you want to just open it up for questions?
Chad's going to go through just the year one projects. There's just a slide data sheet for each one. He can go through, I think, relatively quickly. Some of these you've already seen or at least heard about. But we're going to go through one by one, and feel free to ask any questions you got.
Yeah, either interrupt me or tell me to speed it up. Pleasure of the committee. Okay. So we are focusing on year one, albeit the first table you have in here is going to show your 5-year, which is this. Greg, this is what you're looking at right there. But the cut sheets that we have, we're focusing solely on year one. And so this does show our current year, which again, we're wrapping up here on June 30th. Year one starts July 1st. That's where staff is actively working. But as we work on year one, again, we are working all the way through year 10, 20, wherever we need to go. So our projects, you have district headquarters. So we've allocated the 500,000 for year one, the same for year two, and then some bigger money in year three. Right now, we are working with 2 different firms focusing. One focus is on building 1, the roof and HVAC in this building, and an unused asset, which we refer to as building 2 in the back, and doing a tenant improvement back there and hopefully reoccupying that space.
If I could just ask
Of course.
a question on that. So when we get to year 3, what are we looking at in terms of rehabilitation?
I think that's a major rehabilitation, right?
Would that be developer driven? In other words, would develop?
No, this is just our facilities here. And so this is
Right, but I mean, connection fees or somehow.
potentially that could help fund. Yeah, potentially that could help. And to be quite honest, these are kind of placeholders. We know we have to do kind of something major around here to keep the facilities. There's been very, very little investment or any into the facilities. We fixed a couple of roofs and things, but I think as we move through, like as I said, we're kind of doing some of the planning work now to really come up with the best program to rehabilitate. And so it's really kind of a placeholder right now. We'll probably have more information as into next year as some of these things start to come back. Where
For right now, that $500,000 is just for.
So we're working with we wanted to do this year, we wanted to do the roof and HVAC within this building. The engineer's estimate came in at a little more than double what was currently allocated for. But concurrently, we're working with an architect firm on building 2. So rather than go over budget or reallocate more funds to this one, we're segueing more to there. We'll continue to study this one as well.
the biggest issue we're running into is as you start to tear into things like that, the HVAC and that, it triggers all these additional improvements. And it's actually one of the major adjustments we made on this. We actually took 500,000 out of this. We had $1 million in year 2 where we thought that was going to be like kicking off some of the bigger upgrades. And the reality is you're probably going to do a little more planning on this building and then have one major tenant improvement. That's just kind of what we're focusing
Same
on.
thing you get with home remodel, right? You open the walls
bring
up,
it up
you
to
open
current
the
curve.
ceiling up and it just,
Yeah.
So we've had,
The reason why I was bringing it up is just because, if there is a big project scheduled out in year 3 and we're kind of doing small repairs or maintenance stuff, are we, throwing good money at the bad? In other words, are we going to end up putting stuff into something for 2 years that we're going to end up doing a complete remodel and redoing anyway? So I just kind of was curious to know what that long-term vision is for the rehab process.
and that's exactly that's exactly what we're trying to avoid. We did have the intention of doing, the level of comfort on the other side is not great, to be quite honest. One of our units is out. And so the hope was we could do that without kind of jeopardizing it doesn't look like we can actually do that. So we've already kind of skewed a little bit more towards what you're saying is we don't want to dump this money in and then have to go, and then we're going to rip all that out. So that's exactly what we're at.
I can tell by looking at the numbers, you're not talking about a scrape. So,
No.
So 4 million is just more of a major rehab of the
Tenant
existing
improvement.
facility.
Yeah. I would love it to say 20 million and
It's great.
Have
Look
all
at
in
the-
Rebuild, yeah.
okay. Next one, the isolation valve installation program. This is ongoing. This has been going on for the last better part of 5 years, where we have really actively been managing this project. We, in years past, we have procured and then installed. This is a little bit more of a smooth out process now, to where every year the crews know exactly what they can do. This is solely done in-house, which is unique to Rainbow. I can't say that for many other agencies. Camino del Rey. This is our first crack at this. So this is actually going to be renamed Camino del Rey Water and Sewer Line relocation. This is the County of San Diego's CIP project in Camino del Rey, where they are both raising the elevation and the horizontal alignment of that road. We are working with the County of San Diego. We are working with an engineer firm. We're doing some alignment studies. So this is ongoing. This one has, I think, no, we didn't change these numbers.
No.
These numbers stayed the same. So this is ongoing. The county's timeline on this was originally they were going to be breaking ground this month in March. We attended a meeting down at county headquarters, and that is more like a year out. So which is good for Rainbow. So it gives us some time to
I think it's like 18 months.
not be behind the eight ball. That was music to my ears. Eagles Perch water pipeline improvements. This is off of Gopher Canyon Road. This is one where we have a couple sections of water line and water meters that go through private properties, through people's backyards. The goal here is to bring the water line into the road, go up the driveway. We would relocate those water meters and then also give these residents the benefit of one, possibly two new fire hydrants that currently are not out there. So just get rid of all that infrastructure in people's backyards.
Yeah, so this is actually one, we moved this one up several years, or at least a couple of years. This has been a historical problem for us. We have a pipeline that it's in a terrible location and it's not in good shape. So we're replacing those pipelines and also getting it out of.
This was an old PUP project, wasn't it?
It was.
It was. I remember this from PUP.
Yeah.
And
So I think the idea here is we have some plans that we need to dust off. So this 150,000, basically that's make sure the design is kosher. It's exactly what we want to do. Make sure we have right away, things like that. Make sure the environmental is clear, which I think the environmental probably part of the pier. So I think we're all pretty clear there. But the idea was, basically by the end of this coming fiscal year, have this thing out to bid and then fund the construction in year 2. So
I'm totally supportive. Glad to hear also that the pipeline itself is not in good shape. And so we are upgrading the quality of the pipeline, right? You said
It is a
was-
replacement. Yes.
Yep, yep.
yeah.
We conducted, Robert, you'll remember this, Chad, you'll remember this, about 4 or 5 years ago, we put a couple of very small pipeline projects out to bid based on an internal methodology where we basically, and I'm being loose here, we basically drew lines on a map and said, this is the alignment we want. And we put it out to bid and we got bids and it turned out that for these relatively short projects, that methodology worked relatively well for us rather than a detail, tons and tons of drawings, because we have specs already in our general or specific provisions that talk about how you do a connection, what parts to use, what sizes, et cetera, et cetera. Was this project going to be one of those where we essentially showed the location on a map and bid it?
The project you're talking about, we did that for the Rainbow Heights water line that we installed internally. And that, that led to the CAL FIRE camp up there in Rainbow. And that was to see if we did an engineering drawings, what was the minimum that an engineer would put their stamp on? Was essentially that. We need to do survey and we drew a line down, said this is where we're putting the water line, put that on the sheet of plans. We can't do that for contractors. Right, so for contractors, they're gonna want, we have to produce 100% complete set of plans. If we give them a 60% plans, now then we start facing change orders from them. Well, this wasn't, you didn't tell us about this, this wasn't in the plan. So we gotta get them 100%. This in particular, the plans were already done years ago as part of the PUP project. So
Right?
we have a set of plans for.
So
each
we can
church.
put this out to bid, business as usual, little tinkering on the front end and away you go,
There you
right?
go, yep.
Okay.
If we do the in-house stuff, we can get away with, like, let's call it a 60%, just the line down the road. We can do that internally because we're not gonna do change order ourselves. And if we run into change conditions, again, we're not gonna change order ourselves, we just adjust.
So I clearly misrecalled what that project was about because I think I even remember that you were very happy with the result. And I could have sworn that it was one that we actually got bids on, but no, it was in-house only.
In-house.
Yeah, the ones you're thinking of, there was Nella Lane and there was two others, and it was part of the county's overlay program. And so we knew those pipelines needed replacing. They were going to have a 3 or a 5 year moratorium. So we got out there in advance, but as Robert said, those plans were already done. So we bid them to get an order of magnitude. We bid them as a package project.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you for the clarification. Thank you.
Okay, the manual transfer switch project, this will be the first out to bid. Along bids here very shortly. We're wrapping up the redesign. This was again designed in 2020 or 2021, so it took that redesign effort. But this will go out to bid, and these 3 locations will get done very quickly. So tank maintenance, we talked about this, where we're going to start moving money from the operating budget into the capital budget. So in year 1, so right now it's Hutton and Rainbow Heights, not shown because now we're focusing on July 1st. So the next 2 tanks that will go will be Turner and Gopher tanks. So those are scheduled. And we'll assign these project numbers. We'll work with finance. Do we want to make them 1 project number, split them into 2 project numbers, how we're going to do that? But we just wanted to show the committee what's in the works thus far. La Cañada pipeline replacement. So working on this one, 4,000 linear feet of pipe. We're working on some design right now. Operations already has 2 pressure reducing stations, which is in this current fiscal year. So that work is underway. And then this will start on July 1st, fiscal year 25-26 to go replace that 4,000 linear feet of pipeline.
Is this all in-house?
We are doing this work in-house, yes.
The Eagles Perch, how many feet of pipe was that roughly?
I think it was 1,500. It does not say, but again, we have it on my spreadsheet. There's lots of columns of notes and all that stuff, so I can find that for you.
Just trying to get a sense of the differential between what we pay per foot if we go in versus what we pay per foot if we go out.
Yep.
And just trying to understand how much our money will buy when we have a budget of a certain amount of money for a project, how many?
And I think that's something, I mean, obviously there is advantages to having our staff do these things, right? You're not paying markup on anything, right? You're buying pure material costs, pure labor costs, profit, overhead, all those things are kind of baked in. I think that's something we'll probably be looking at maybe over this coming fiscal year. I know we had talked, there was talks previously about potentially, spinning up a new construction crew that's dedicated to CIP. Obviously there's equipment, there's trucks, there's pretty significant upfront expense to that as well. But I think as we start to move into, when we get into these heavier pipeline replacement projects, something to look at. I had a conversation with a general manager from Vista Irrigation District. They have a CIP crew. He said they get a couple miles a year done, about 2 miles of pipeline replacement done, just with that in-house crew. So I think we've got some examples out there, and I think we're going to take a hard look and see, would it make sense?
I think the quality issue is important too. And I
That's
think
true.
that when we have our own people that know our system and know our equipment and whatever, doing it ourselves, I think the quality is higher. And to me, I think the only downside that I see to doing it in-house is the possibility that something will come up and the crew will need to be pulled off the job to go do something else. If we could get to an environment in which we truly had a dedicated crew, that seems like that would just be a fabulous investment on behalf of ratepayers.
And that is
to do this. Productivity is greater, cost per foot is lower. I mean, everything works, assuming you have a dedicated crew.
Yeah. And I think it wouldn't eliminate completely. Obviously, you're going to still have your projects that are going to go out for contract, right?
Mhm.
There's going to be projects you're going to have to bid out. So, at some point, if you could get to, I can do 2-3 miles, whatever it is, in-house every single year. And then now I'm doing a little bit more as these projects come up. You are really starting to make a dent in your pipeline replacement program. So I think it is something we're going to take a hard look at. It is, though, it's a big investment, and I think the biggest part of it is because I've been through this before, not specifically for a pipeline replacement crew, but something similar. And it is staying focused on the mission, right? Like, because there always is an opportunity to, oh, hey, pull the CIP crew, bring them, and you don't want to lose that. So it takes good management is basically what it takes.
And if you
It takes
spin
really
up,
good
if you
management.
spin up a crew, this cooperative agreement that you're working on with other districts could potentially help us deal with at least the first 2 or 3 years of equipment, like the trucks or whatever. If we could rent them from somebody else rather than having to go out and buy right off the bat a lot of the big heavy stuff, that might help us spin up a crew. That's all I'm thinking.
Yeah.
It's a great thing you're working on.
Yeah. So I think, we've got a couple projects that we're working on here, but I think as we kind of move into where we're going to be a little more heavier into that business, I think over the next year, we'll talk a lot about that.
When you do a replacement like this, an existing line, does this have just minimal environmental hassles to it? Like no biology guys out and
Yeah,
bird
usually
surveys?
usually for pipelines. If it's pipelines within existing right of way, less than a mile, you got no issues. You just
Great.
notice of exemption, go do it. So yeah, I think replacements too. If you're replacing in kind and not expanding the capacity of the asset, like if you want to go from an 8 to a 12, all of a sudden now you've done something, right? You've expanded the capacity, so it's, yeah, I know. But those are the two things. If it's public right of way, less than a mile, you can basically get away with any pipeline. If it's just straight replacement, no expansion capacity, that's another exemption. And those are the ones we use most often. Yeah.
Okay, so the EV charging stations, this just came up with a meeting that we had with SDG&E a couple of weeks ago. So we added this as a new project. So we'll get a project number here. But again, earmarking some monies. These are placeholders for right now, but we do know we need some vehicles. We do know it's a 1-for-1. Therefore, we are going to need some charging stations. So starting on it. Was there questions the committee had on public versus fleet, or did that already get answered?
I think Jake answered it by saying they
These-
would be in a secured
It'd be
location.
behind the fence.
They would
Okay.
not be for public meetings and stuff there.
Yeah.
Chad, how much of that first year 100K with the questions in the unknown future, how much of that are we really going to need to plan on?
Of utilizing that
Yeah.
100,000. I don't think staff thinks we're going to use all of the 100,000 on year one. Because if we bought 1 or 2 EVs, we don't need 16 charging stations out of the gate. So, but it is coordination with SDG.
We're chasing some grants on it too. Like if we do end up having to do it. So we've got a grant application in for SDG&E. So it helps with some of those efforts too, but it's kind of a placeholder. We're not sure, but if nothing changes, we have to move on it. Right. So that's kind of where we're forcing our hand a little
We
bit.
don't have any EV at this.
No.
Currently, we do not.
And
How
what
many
kind of
employees,
SDG,
that's
sorry,
about it.
for SDG&E then, you do an 18-inch electrical pipe coming in here? Is there enough juice coming under the property or?
Yeah, so depending on the chargers, let's say worst case scenario, we had to electrify all the trucks that are parked up here.
Yeah.
Depending on the chargers that you get dictates the size of the existing transformer. So the green box that's
Yeah.
right here by.
Yeah.
So if we get the super rapid chargers, like 20 minutes, yeah, they've got to upgrade the complete service.
Even what's in ground?
Yeah,
New lines?
everything.
Yeah.
If we stay with like a overnight type of charging system, we can use the existing transformer that's there.
What we know right now is it depends.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a
Exactly.
definite maybe.
Everything.
Yeah, it's a definite maybe. That's a great way to do it.
How many trucks are there?
In the fleet,
About 40 trucks. If you count total, like dump trucks, backhoes, skid steers, everything that runs on gas or diesel, we're about 40.
and as we've stated, many of the trucks in the fleet, once you get above the 3/4 ton, they do not make these in an EV. So there's that as well. But we like to joke, don't confuse us with the facts. You know? Yeah, yeah. Any other, and that's what headquarters is gonna look like. That's that photo. This is my happy
wow.
place here.
So we could see a lot of upsizing in trucks that are purchased.
Yeah. Okay, also focusing efforts on the water and wastewater master plan. So working on this, there is money in the current year, so this will go out for an RFP in the very near future. And then we kind of changed that spend rate to focus on what was then year two, now year one. So we anticipate this being anywhere from a 10 to 18-month effort on this project, but this will go out and we'll rocking and rolling.
And the master plan, that's got what time horizon?
This anywhere from 10 to 18 months from when we award a contract to when we are
No, but
holding.
the plan, that the outcome of that plan has what kind of a
Oh,
planning horizon?
5 years.
yeah, typically an agency keeps them for anywhere from 5 to 6 years. If it's done really, really well and there's not a lot of change within your district, you can go a little bit longer, but 6 years is about the average.
I mean, the planning horizon looks out much further than that,
Right.
but yeah, typically every 5 to 10 years,
Come back.
you want to update your master
Refresh.
plan. Yeah.
Yeah, this will look at developments that are east of I-15 on the 76 corridor, closer to the Paula Casino, that are at this point pie in the sky developments, but it will also look at those and the what if scenarios. Okay, then we focus to that same table for the wastewater projects. So you're looking at current year and then the 5-year. And then for year one, there are 2 projects. So the first one is the replacement of 3 emergency backup generators at 3 different locations. That is an actual photo of our site. These generators are obsolete. They do not make parts for them. One of the 3 that is scheduled for replacement under this project did break. We did use our one and only towable generator to go put it out there at site. And then we're dealing with Air Pollution Control District and a series of other logistical issues. So this is a need project, and you'll see the asterisks there. We are looking for that grant funding through the EPA on this project.
Are these smaller generators than
These
the West Lilac?
Yes,
generators would be?
yes, significantly smaller. Yeah, the generators for those pump stations are hovering right around the $1 million mark. These are under 300,000. They're more like 175 to maybe 300,000.
Okay.
Yep, smaller, but equally as critical. Without these, you could have sewer backups.
What fuel are those?
So I actually have a map in my office. They vary. We have diesel, we have natural gas, and we have propane. It's different at all the different sites.
Not electric.
The fact, the different fuel sources, that is dependent upon where it is and what is available to you.
That and the size, like some of the ones that just need to put out a lot, you need to run diesel, but exactly, if there's natural gas nearby or it can run on propane, that's readily available, absolutely. And then this will be named Jake's project. So North River Road sewer replacement. This is where, so all of the sewer flow comes to lift station number 2, which is at the corner of Old River Road and Little Gopher Canyon. It goes under the San Luis River, under Highway 76, and now you're on North River Road. That force main then transitions to that 15-inch gravity main, and ultimately we discharge into the city of Oceanside. This section is undersized. It is prone to surcharging. Again, this is 100% of the district's sewer flow is all coming through this single corridor.
Is this on the east side of 76
West of 70.
west?
Yeah.
I
So
am
if
really, where's Puerto del Sol? Where's 76?
Weston.
Way up there.
All right. And 76 is to your right.
Correct. Correct.
Would be like.
Yeah, okay. And the end point, what is that Sleeping Indian?
No, Sleeping Indian's back there. There you go.
Wilshire. Down.
So it's already going to be.
Past, its end point is past that large residential construction project
correct.
currently
Yes.
underway.
That's why they're going to take it back and the city will own and operate a large portion of that alignment.
That part would be replaced
There you go.
by the city of Ocean or by the developer for the city of Oceanside. So we will cease to have a pipeline there.
We will.
We will.
Our pipeline will end where Robert's little finger is.
Yep.
right There.
And that's a good
And
thing.
that's at Sleeping
That's-
Indian?
No,
Half a mile that we don't have to replace.
Wilshire, okay.
again, the bound, and our district boundary is on the east side of Sleeping Indian right there. So that
So
will
so this is all Rainbow. This Sleeping Indian right here, this is all, City of Oceanside.
correct.
Served by City of Oceanside water here, Rainbow, but this road all the way to this point, the City of Oceanside maintains this road. All the way to Puerto Lumis.
If we have Oceanside and then the brown swath is Rainbow, how is it that the Puerto del Sol is back to Oceanside again? I mean, does it loop around? What's the deal?
Yeah. The district, the boundary.
That's goofy. That's
Yeah.
creepy weird.
But the majority of that whole section fronts are what would be potential customers for us. To Sleeping Indian, but then it's Oceanside from there.
So we could potentially pick up customers in that whole Puerto del Sol. It could work for us, right?
I would think so.
Because
Yeah.
that would be money for us, wouldn't it? It would be development money.
Oceanside would have a hard time serving those folks with sewer. Yeah, they'd have to build a big, long sewer. So I imagine even if that was in their service.
And if we
area,
got the sewer, does that mean we'd probably get the water too?
not necessarily. Depends on if they can serve it or not.
I just like that developer money. I'm sorry, I just do. I'm just always looking for that.
That is the last slide. Does the committee have any questions for us?
I
Well
will.
done, thank you.
Hmm?
So well done. Thank you.
Yeah, I think so too. And very, very personally, very happy to see so much pipeline replacement and rehab. And I like the accounting procedures where once it's budgeted, we put a fence around it and that money is for that purpose. Regardless of when we spend it, if we get a hiccup and can't move quickly, the money's got a fence on it and we can use it. I like that. And because the ratepayers are really very, I think it's one of the most efficient and effective investments that we can make on behalf of our ratepayers. And so, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, I'm sitting here staring off into space. As needed. Any yellow dots?
Not for the month of February, no.
Okay, no yellow dots, so nothing has changed. And item 15, suggested items for next time. What do we have for next time? You guys got anything?
Right now. I don't think we'll be ready to award. Those will all be farther out. Don't know offhand right now.
Okay,
I'd just like to make a comment. I'd like to introduce Rod Smith. He's joined us at the meeting. He's interested in joining.
oh,
Rod has quite a colorful history of knowing the water system, both on a local and a national level. And I think I've known Rod for over 20 years. So Rod, if you want to just take a minute, and introduce
yeah,
yourself.
please do.
We'll do
Okay.
the.
I'm sorry, I didn't know I would have had that
No,
at the
that's okay.
beginning. At the beginning, I would love.
Well, I'll start with the least important, my background. PhD, University of Chicago Economics. First job, Rand Corporation. In 1975, the California legislature came to Rand and said, let's look at the future of California water industry with more economics and trading and less what was traditional there. So as part of that original study team, I went back to University of Chicago. I've written books forwarded by Secretary of Interior Bruce Babbitt on water finance, water trading. I was a full professor of economics at Claremont McKenna College until when my kids were in the second and third grade, I walked away from tenure to go full-time in my firm. So I guess I'm a bit of a risk taker. Our firm has been involved in for public and private sector clients and everything to do with investments, due diligence, pricing, negotiations. We are also from time to time, and I'm an expert in civil litigation. I was actually on behalf of the plaintiff, where the Superior Court judge held your tiered rate structure for residents unconstitutional. As our president would say, it was a beautiful opinion. Read it. I've also been involved in binational opportunities between the state of Baja and the Colorado River Basin states. So I have a bit of a background bringing together economics, finance. We do a lot of due diligence. And the reason why I came today is because you're now part of a 5-year planning process. And I'm just here to observe today just how you all, are doing. And I think I'm very pleased to say I think you're all on, the right track. I have a few ideas that could be put on the table and rejected, which is fine. Oh, and by the way, I happen to be married to one of your directors. Any questions?
No, thank you.
Thanks, Rod.
Appreciate it.
We appreciate you coming. Thank you.
Can I overlook? You guys have never met Mary either, have you?
I think I have at one point.
Okay, this is Mary Ackroyd. She is our interim
right.
finance manager. So she's doing a little overlapping with Constantine, but she came in when we lost Rick.
Mhm.
And so over the last few months, and really you'll see the audit next week. So the audit's complete. That was kind of one of the big reasons one of the big ticket items that Mary really helped push across the line. But I'll just say in a few months, Mary's brought tremendous value to this district in a part-time role, not only kind of keeping the ball rolling on some of those bigger things, but she's just really been a huge asset for us and continues to be now that she's bringing Constantine on board. And it almost like we had kind of overlap with Rick and Mary, and she's provided that bridge for us. And so anyways, I'm super appreciative and just want to make sure you guys knew who that
So are we.
was.
So we, unfortunately, we did not have enough finance committee meetings so that we could have gotten to know you during that period. And I missed that, but we'll get there.
I'll keep you busy.
And sir, thank you for coming. Thank you for expressing interest. We are always eager to find ratepayers who want to become involved in the water district's business. And normally the way this all works is that we issue you an invitation to come to 2 or 3 of our committee meetings so that you can get a sense of what we do. We invite you, as we would any member of the public, that if you wish to make a comment or talk to us about one of the items that we are considering, or at the beginning of the meeting, if you would like to just talk to us generically about something that's not on the agenda, we look forward to that. We welcome that. We would very much want to hear from ratepayers, because all of us here are ratepayers, and we have chosen to volunteer our time to be of some service to our district. And we hope that there are other citizens in the rate base who would like to do the same. If after 2 or 3 meetings, you are comfortable and you believe this is something that you would be committed to making, when I say full-time, the monthly meetings on a regular basis, that you're willing to commit to that, then we can have that conversation with you at a committee meeting, and it ultimately results in us recommending to the board that you be appointed to the committee. So I just wanted you to kind of understand what our process is. We want time for you to kind of get to know us. We want to get to know you. If we think there is a good fit mutually, then we would be looking forward to move forward. We can always use more depth here, more depth. Absolutely. So as Clint Eastwood said, a man's got to know his limitations, right? So there you go. All right, so if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Okay, thank you, thank you. Okay, so we did not really have any suggested agenda items for the next meeting, but the staff, as always, is free to put together what they need. Unless there is an objection, I think we are at adjournment, right? So we'll adjourn this meeting.